Hi, welcome back to another episode where I will work with my playlist builder app that I am building with .NET MAUI. Today we will continue building the UI and doing some stuff around that. So let's open Visual Studio and start to build it. Last time I used the Android emulator. So today my plan is to use the iPhone simulator again as in the first episode. And in upcoming episode, we maybe will run it on Mac or Windows as well, because now they have released a version of Visual Studio for ARM that can run .NET MAUI. So that means that I can use that on my Mac using Parallels, for example. But that's nothing we will do today. It will be in upcoming episode. So subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss anything. Okay, so let's select iPhone simulator. Let's go with iPhone 14 Pro. And we can start to run the app to see where we was last time. And here we have the app. So we click the login to Spotify button. We accept that the app can access the data. And here we have an exception. System exception has been thrown. Error adding record. Missing entitlement. When we use keychain on iOS, and keychain is what's used with secure storage, we need to have an entitlement file. At least when running it on simulator, we need that for keychain. So we will go and add that. And that's something we don't need on Android. That's the reason why we did not add that in the previous episode. So we go to the platforms folder and we take a look at iOS. Okay, we don't have any entitlements folder, and we don't have anyone in Mac Catalyst either. So let's go and create one. So new file, and this is an XML file, empty, and entitlements.plist. It is an XML file, but it will have the file ending of plist. And here we can use Xcode or Visual Studio Code. I use Visual Studio Code because I already prepared with one entitlements plist that we can copy in. So if we look at this dictionary here, we have the keychain access groups and we have this value here. So let's close this one and go back to Visual Studio. So we go to project properties and we go to bundle signing and we set custom entitlement to the new file we created. iOS, just like that. Okay, so and now we have a problem. We have a bug in Visual Studio, at least in the Mac version. And that means that we need to go here and we remove this platform iOS and just have entitlements.plist. And then we also need to go here and set cockpit output directory for this to work. If you run this on Windows, I don't know if you need to do this, but at least you need to do it on Mac. And this bug has been here for a while. Because I had that already when I did my video about secure storage. So now we can go and run this and see if it works now. And here we have the app again, and now it works. So now we can go and search for Petty, for example. Let's see. Yeah, iOS autocorrect is not our friend when using keyboard. And nothing happens. And then we can go to the log here, and then we see that we have an exception. Response to code does not indicate success, 401. Yeah, and that can be because the access token has expired, because pretty long time has passed since we acquired the token, have rebuilt the app, and so on, and the time for an access token on Spotify seems to be pretty short. So let's go and implement access token. So we go to the Spotify service, and here we go to this method here. And here we go to the search method, the only method that we have right now. And we will refactor this a bit and we will do a generic get method instead that we can use for all our getters, so we don't need to write this code multiple times. So let's start with that. So private async task of t, because we want to specify what this method should return. We call it get t, and as an argument we have an URL. And now we can copy this code here, and instead we say URL here. And here when we have the response, we can now go and check the status code. So response.statuscode. Of course we need an if statement. So if response.statuscode is equal to http status code dot unauthorized. Now we should go and refresh our token. So, but because we don't want this to happen more than once, because we maybe have an invalid refresh token, then will be stuck in a loop. So we will add an retry count. So private int retry count is equal to 0. And here we do retry count plus plus, and we also add a check here if retry count is equal to 0. So only do it then. And after here we can reset the retry count, because it will only come here if this succeeds, because here we will also add throw new unauthorized exception, and then we can do like this: var refresh result is equal to await initialize, and then we will use the initialize method, and instead of the auth code we'll pass our refresh token that we not have loaded yet, so we can go and do that. We add one here also at the class level, refresh token, and then we set it here as well. Refresh token is equal to result dot refresh token, and in the here as well. So we copy this row and change access token to refresh token. Refresh token, refresh token. Okay, so now we have the refresh token. Now we can go back here and set it there. But then we also will build out this method to take another argument that says is refresh. So we can go to the initialize method and add that one. Bool is refresh, and then we can have a default value to false, so we don't need to change the other code we have. So then we can do like this. We can say is refresh here, and in that case we should have refresh underscore token instead of the code as value there. It should not be equal there, it should be question mark. And on ground type we will have refresh token instead of authorization code. So we do the same here, is refresh. Then we have refresh underscore token if it's true, and authorization code if it's false. Okay, that's the only thing we need to do in this method, except that we need to check that result.refresh token not is null, because if the refresh token not have changed, we will not get a new one back, and then we will have null here, so we don't want to set it there and destroy our refresh token that we already have. So we move this one into the if statement as well. So now we have code for the refresh token that we can go and continue with this get method. And now we go and check if refresh result is true. Then we will do return, and we will call this get method again, and we will hopefully have a result that time, and we need an await. So, and now we can go back to search and we can refactor that a bit. So instead of this, we say var URL is that string. We don't need get client, we don't need this at all. We just do return, get, search, result, pass the URL. And then we don't need the async keyword here either. And one last thing we need to do in the get method here is also to change this serialization to be. Okay, we also need to change the interface, of course. So bool is refresh is equal to false. Okay, now we can run the app again. We got an authorize exception again, and the reason for that is that we had this check here, client is equal to null, and we only create the HTTP client once, and we have changed as access token we added there. So, and here we go and set client is null, so we get the new one with the new access token. So, and then we can run the app, and then we search again, and the reason this is not moving up to the title bar as it did on Android is because we have a bug in .NET MAUI, and that is related to the focus event. But there are an PR open for that, so hopefully we will have a fix soon. So we search again, and now we have a result. And here we can see another .NET MAUI bug that is only for iOS. It's because of the CollectionView that is take up a lot of space that it should not do. And a fix for that, or a workaround, or what we should call is to set the height of the CollectionView, because that will work pretty good in our case because we have them horizontal. So we can go and say height request is 200. Copy that one and do that on the other one too. And so now it looks as it should again. So, and now we can go and create the new views for this episode, and that will be an artist view. So if we select Tom Petty for here, for example, we will navigate to view and we'll get more info about Tom Petty. So let's go and create a view model for artist and a view for artist. So let's start with the view model. So a new class, artist view model. So we make namespace file scope, we add the view model base class that we created in the previous episode as the base class. Yeah, and then we go and create the artist view, new file, .NET MAUI, content page sample, artist view. Great. And now we will have tiny MVVM. So we will have that base class. So we import the namespace, tiny MVVM, and set the base view to tiny view like this. And then when we are here, we can also set the data type of this view to the view model, so we will have the bindings compiled. And then we need to import the view models namespace. Playlist builder.viewModels x colon data type is VM colon artist view model. So let's go to the code behind and inject the view model. And we should remove content page as the base class. Artist view model. So, and add it to a field and set binding context. So, and now we need to go and add it to the IOC. So it will be resolved when we're trying to navigate to it. So we add it as a transient artist view model. We do the same with the view artist view. And now, because this view will not be in the shell, we need to go and create a route to it. So we do that also here in the MAUI program class, but we create a new method here, private void register routes. And then we go to routing. That has a static class that we can use, register route, and what the route should be, so artist, and what type of view that should be resolved when we navigate to that route. So artist view. So, and now we can go and call register routes here. So, okay, this one needs to be static because this is a static class. That makes sense. Okay, now we can go and handle the navigation to this new page. So if we go to our home view model, we're already prepared for that. So we have navigate to artist here. But we also want to have an ID in here. So navigate to artist should have a string ID. And then we need to make this model containing an ID as well. So string ID. And then we add it in the mapping for both tracks, albums, and artists. Just like that. Okay, now we have an ID, and now we can navigate to the artist page. So we say navigation dot navigate to artist, and then we just pass the ID as a parameter to that. And this is the helper method in Tiny MVM. So the last thing we need to do before we go and build that page is that we need to bind to this command. So we go to home view, we go to the template for artist in the collection view, CollectionView.item template, and to this vertical stack layout, we will add a gesture recognizer. And the reason that we add it to the stack layout is because we want this to happen whenever we tap on the item. It doesn't matter if it is the image or label. So vertical stack layout dot gesture recognizers, and then we add a tap gesture recognizer and a command binding, and we will have a tap command property to bind to, and as a command parameter we pass the ID, just like that. Add a line break there so we see what we are doing. So now we are ready to navigate. So let's go to the new artist view model, and here we can override the on parameter set method, and this is important because if we use the override for initialize, for example, we will not have any value of the parameter. So you should use on parameter set. So await there. Then we have a navigation parameter property that we can use. We also have a query parameters property here that we can use if we have a query string. And then they will be mapped into a dictionary. But for now, we can use the navigation parameter, and that is type object, so we can just call toString on it, like that. Okay, so now we have an ID, and now we need to go and fetch the artist from Spotify. And for that, we need a Shopify service, and for that, we need a Spotify service. So we add inject it in the constructor, but we need to go and add a new method here. And that new method is called getArtist. So we add it to the interface and it should return an artist. And we will have an ID as input parameter. So we go here to Spotify service. We implement the interface. We go to the new method and var URL is equal to artists slash ID. So we go and add a $sign here. We do it like this. So now we have the URL. We can just use the get method that we created in the beginning of this episode. So get and return type artist. Just like that, and pass the URL. So simple was that. When we also are doing this, we can add and get albums method too. That one will be as simple as this. We just take an artist ID and we use it like this. So we go and add this one to the interface as well. Okay, so we are ready when we need that one. So let's go back to the artist view model and fetch the data. So in this case, we will fetch both the artist and the album and show it on the page. So we can do that in parallel. And we do that by creating a list of tasks. Tasks is equal to new. And then we create an artist task that is Spotify service dot get artist and pass ID. And note that I will not have an await keyword here because this will not execute yet. So we take album task is equal to Spotify service dot get albums. And now we can execute both of those tasks by calling await task.when all. And then we artist task and album task. And I don't really know why I created this list, because we don't need it, because we only have those two tasks. So, and then we can say artist is artist task.result. Just like that. And var album will be album task.result. Okay, good. Now we can figure out what data we need. So my idea is to have an image at top. We will show the name and we will show the followers that artists have. And under that we will show all albums for the artists. So for that we need a couple of properties. So we can start by creating one for top image, one for name, and one for followers. So private string top image, and it should not be uppercase here because that will be handled by the source generator. So this will be an observable property. And now we can see that we have a top image property generated by the source generator from communitytoolkit.mvm that we added in a previous episode. So top image should be artist.image. And we also need to make sure that we actually have an image. So we do like this. And then we say artist.images. We can take the first one in that list. If you want, you can fetch a specific size of the image as well, but we don't care about that right now, at least. .url, like that. Okay, and now we can go and add one property for name and one for followers, but followers should be an integer. Followers. And add the observable property attribute there as well. I think this is pretty neat to write it like this. When you have the source generate, often you create one field for each, but you don't need to do that because you can do like this. So name is equal to artist name, and followers is equal to artist.followers.total. Okay, now we can go and start and build the view from that. So we open artist view, and of course we want to have an activity indicator here, so we can create that. Grid activity indicator is running. Bind that to the is visible property that we have in the base view model. And horizontal options is center, and vertical options also center to have it in the middle. And we go back to the view model, and then we also add is busy is true, and we add try catch, and we use the method in the base view model to handle exception, just like that. And when we set is busy to false. So now we can continue with the view. Okay, so let's add a collection view, and we will have the top image as a header of the collection view. So collection view, like that, and then we set is visible, and bind that to is not busy. So it will only be visible when the activity indicator is not visible. And then we create collection view dot header, and we add a vertical stack layout to that header, and inside of there we add a grid because we will have the name layered on the image, and grid can have multiple childs, so that's a good control for layering components. So grid, we set the height request on that grid, let's say 400. Horizontal options fill to make it take the whole width of the page. And then we can add an image aspect fill, because we want it to take up the whole area and we want the aspects to be retained. So we set aspect fill, and source binding top image, like that. So, and now we will have the top image in the header of the collection view. So let's go and add the name of the artist there too. No, not the name of the artist. We will add followers there, and we will add the name of the artist here in the title. Binding name, just like that. And now we go back here, we add a content view, so we can have some padding, for example 10. And we set the background color, so the text will be readable. We will have it like a semi-transparent black color. So AA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros, and that will have a black color. And we will add it in the end. So vertical options, end. Just like that. And then we add a label inside of here. Label, text. And now we create a binding to the followers property. And now we also want to add a string format here because we want to see the number of followers followed by the followers word. So let's say string format is O colon and O, and N says that is a number, and we will have 0 decimals. And then followers, just like that. So, and we set text color to white, so it will be readable. White. So let's see if this code works. So we search again, maybe for Roxette this time. And we click that one. And yeah, here we have the image, we have the title, and we have the number of followers. Okay, let's go and add the albums below here as the last thing we do in this episode. So then we need an observable collection that we can bind the albums to. So let's go and create one. So private observable collection, and here we will reuse a search item view model because we will have similar properties there. So albums is equal to new. Albums is new because it's always good to have default values here so we don't have any null exceptions. So, and then we need to add the observable, and then we need to add the observable property attribute, so we will have a property generated for us. And now we go and map those albums into the observable collection, just like this. Okay, so now we have the albums in a collection view. So now we go back to the artist view, and we will create an item template. So collection view, item template. And my idea here is that we should have a grid with 2 columns for mobile devices, and then we can do some stuff for it to make better when we add desktop devices later. So we go to collection view and we set the items layout, and we set that to grid items layout, and orientation vertical, span 2, in this case that means 2 columns, and we add some item spacing, and let's say 20. So now we can go and add the template for each item, and you can see that it indicates an error here, but that's just the ID that don't understand everything correctly right now. So let's go and create the item template, and we add a data template as we need for all templates. We set the data type and set that to the search item view model, and here we just add an image, and the source should be a binding to the image URL property, and this binding mode can be one time because we will never update that, and then we don't need to have a listener on that. So we set aspect to aspect fill, and horizontal options to start because we want to have it like that. And below that we will have a label, and that means that we need to have a vertical stick layout. And that one can have a little bit of padding, let's say 10 for example. We can see how that looks later and change it if we need to. So label, text, binding, title, mode, one time. Okay. So let's go and run and see if it works so far. So we search again. Click the artists. And we don't have any albums. And that's because we need to set item source also to albums. Just like that. And hopefully hot reload will be with us. No, not today. So, okay, let's restart that. I should also mention that I'm running a preview version of Visual Studio for Mac. That can be the reason that I have some problems sometimes. And now we have the albums here, but I don't think that looks that good because they are clipped. So we need to go and handle that. But we also want them to customize so we'll have a lot of space here, for example. That will happen if we set width and height to 100, for example. It will not look good on this screen size. So we need to do some calculation here. And the calculations will be done in a converter. So that means that we can set height and width request here, and we can bind it to the actual page, and then we can convert the page to a width number in the converter. So let's go and create a converter. We add a new folders for converters because this is the first converter that we create. Converters. Create a new class. And we call it view to column with converter. Just like that. And converter should implement the I-value converter interface. Just like this. And we only need to implement the convert method. We don't need to implement convert back. So, okay, value here in this case will be a view. So var view, and then we cast the value parameter to a view. Value, just like this. And then we calculate the width, and for that we need a property for number of columns, and we also need one for called dedication, so we can say that if we have padding of 40, for example, we can remove that from the calculation. So we add those properties here. Var width is equal to view.width minus dedication. And then we return width divided with the number of columns. Just like that. So now the converter are ready. Now we can go and use it in the view. So vvm tiny view dot resources. And then we need to import the converter's namespace. Converters. Just like that. So then we use it here. Converters. View to column width converter. And we have number of columns is 2. And we set dedication to 40. And then we of course need a key here also, as we need with all resources. So key, and then we say to column width. So now we're ready to use the converter down here. So on the image we set height request binding, and now we need to pass a view that have the width of the whole page. And the easiest way to do that is to set a name of this root view to, for example, main content. And then we can set that as the source for the binding. So binding, source x:reference main content, and then we say path is just a dot because we want the whole object, and then we add the converter. So converter static resource to column width, and then we copy this height request property setter and do the same for width request because we want both width and height to be the same. Okay, now we are ready to run the app. Then click the artist, and here we have the top image, we have the followers, and we have their albums. Yeah, and it looks pretty good. And this is all for this episode. And that was all for this episode. In upcoming episode, we will continue to build this app, make it look nicer, make it run on more devices. So please subscribe to my channel and press the like button if you like what I'm doing. So see you next time. Bye bye.